What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 4 of the Coach and the Couch Potato. As always, I'm Jeremy, the Couch Potato. On the other side of the screen, we've got Coach Slate. What's good, Coach? How's your week?
Everything's been good, man. Another good week in the books. We're teaching Macbeth in English class right now. The kids absolutely love it. That's a ton of sarcasm. They can't stand it, but it is fun nonetheless, man. How about you?
Not bad, not bad. Just another week. Good week for the boys. Talked to Jaden last night. He's had a busy week as always. Had the first midterms of the semester. Couple of brutal classes. So
Uh,
to see him kind of getting that final feel, that first feel of those harder classes is good.
yeah,
So a
absolutely.
good week all around. And then about 45 minutes before we met up, here virtually. Great weekend for the Buckeyes already.
A
Uh,
great weekend.
Number one corner in the class of 25, Naeem Offord. Number one corner, top 5 kid in the class.
Yeah,
Um, the caveat that I love about it is we went to Birmingham, Alabama, and took a kid. Uh,
massive. Man, that's
the
huge.
SEC fans are not happy about this one. Within like 5 minutes of Hayes Fawcett posting the graphic, I saw South Carolina fans, I saw Georgia fans, I saw Bama fans, I saw
Yeah,
Auburn fans, and the best part is they're all just taking the easy route and saying we dropped the bag.
yeah,
Uh, yes, NIL plays a part in all this now, but kids still have to want to play for you.
absolutely.
And this kid's a stud. We were talking before we started recording a little bit about the physical side of him. I'm going to let you take that away. That's obviously more your alley. So, what do you see in the
Yeah,
kid?
man. I think first off, Coach Walton, OG Walt, is just killing the game right now, man. Like this guy is the graphic Ohio State just posted of him. It was him bowling, and he said, "This is what I do." Like it was. It's just so cool to see a former Buckeye making that impact on the current Buckeye. So I think that's pretty cool. But this kid Naeem Alford, he's my favorite DB in the class of 25. He's got everything you would want in a corner. He's 6'1", 185 pounds. He's rangy. He's athletic. He's got great ball skills. He's a pretty elite punt returner. He's a willing and physical tackler. I mean, he's a complete corner, in my opinion. He's got the type of frame that you would want to keep him at corner, but let's say his frame, he's going to be pushing 200 plus when he gets to Ohio State. He could be a guy that you put at safety, or he is a guy that you could bump inside, kind of like we have with Jordan Hancock, and he could be elite in the slot as well. I think him and what we have in Sanchez, Sanchez is legit 6'2", 6'3", and now you got another 6'1" kid. I think you're seeing the wave of those long, rangy corners is reaching Ohio State. So the possibilities that you have when you have corners like this are endless. It just makes your defense so much more complete, and it just allows you and opens you up to so many different things. So this kid is special. He's really special. And like you said, going to Birmingham, Alabama, like getting this kid to commit and be excited, and his whole family, you could see it in the photos that he was posting. Like his whole family seems to be all in. It's still early. Obviously, we got to hang on to him now. But to go out and go down into the deep south and get a kid like this is it's great for the Buckeyes. So kudos to OG Walt and the rest of the staff, man. You guys are killing it.
Yeah, that's what really stands out to me about he and Sanchez both. Sanchez's parents are like honorable Buckeyes at this point. The
Yeah,
way that both of
Pantone
his parents.
Pantone's got him on salary or something because
Oh,
they're helping out a
exactly.
ton.
And they, they've talked about Offord, and you know, we'd be remiss if we didn't say there's a chance that we're going to get into the number 4 corner in that
I
class as
know.
well. And Dorian Brew, Ohio kid, moved to Texas, moved his commitment back. But I get it. You got a USC offer. Go
Yeah,
visit SoCal for free. Enjoy it.
absolutely. Would do that in a
Uh,
heartbeat.
yeah. So yeah, it's always good to get good news right before we come on. So we got that. We've talked all week. Our big plan to talk about today, we really want to get an early peek at spring. Uh,
Yep.
with all the good news we've had lately, it makes for some intriguing storylines. Most of which, spring is always a time for position battles. Um, there's not a ton, because of so many guys coming back.
Yeah.
Um, obviously, I feel like the biggest one's probably the offensive line. Um,
Yes.
the left side of that line is cemented, pending some stud left tackle going in the spring portal to where you can move Simmons
Yeah.
back to the right side.
Yeah.
Simmons, Donovan, Seth McLaughlin. The right side gets a little interesting. Josh Fryer at tackle, I didn't love it. I
He had
think
some
a
ups
lot
and
of
downs.
people, yeah, and a lot of people have your boy as the
Yeah.
early candidate for right tackle, but there's also a lot of stuff out there about him moving inside.
Yeah.
So where do you see Luke, in the scheme of things, and how do you see the right side of that line playing out?
Yeah, obviously I had the opportunity to coach Luke for 2 years up at Finley. First and foremost, the kid is fantastic. I mean, he is a true ambassador for the Ohio State program. One thing I always remember about Luke on my birthday, his senior year, he surprised me and brought me down, and he asked me to bring my dad too. So it was my dad's first opportunity to kind of go inside the shoe and to get that full experience of what an Ohio State recruit gets. And the guys down there, the workers were calling him the mayor. Like he was just such an ambassador for that group, for that class, and for the program in general. So I may be a little biased, but I don't care. I'm not going to run away from that. The kid is special. I think he's got the athletic ability to play both inside and outside. I think he could be elite when it comes to being a center or guard. As a defensive coach, I think he could be a pretty good 3 technique, but that's another conversation. But I think he has all the tools that you want in a right guard. He also has the athleticism and the versatility to bump out at right tackle. It's a good problem to have. I know that they have talked to him about playing the interior. I would really like to see him and Tegra really battle it out for that right guard spot or right tackle spot, either one. I think it will bring the best out of both of them. And I think, at the end of the day, I could see Luke popping in at right guard and being the guy next year. I mean, he was the 6th lineman this year. He wore the number 98 jersey to be the additional tight end that would come in on the goal line packages. So Coach Fry sees what he has, man. And I just think that, this offseason is going to be big for him. I know he's training hard. I had a chance to talk to him not too long ago. So I'm excited to see him take that next step. And I think he's going to be the guy at right guard.
I like it. I like it a lot. It's going to be interesting to see how that room develops, though, because you're going to have an odd man out somewhere, be it a Carson Heinzman or even potentially Fryer. It'll be interesting to see, kind of that 6th lineman position. A lot of people look at the tight end. We had some issues. Like Cade Stover was phenomenal. Let me preface that. But Cade Stover's blocking, and some of that I think was scheme. So I think tight end's going to be interesting. I think, going to the portal to get Kazmarek, the more I watch this kid, the more I like him a lot.
Yeah.
He blocks well, he catches well. So I think he's probably obviously your number one.
Yeah, I agree.
And I really like, I like G. But G is still reminds me of that kid in high school who was always bigger than everybody and had to adapt to their body, except kind of in reverse. He came in as a receiver, had a great frame, walked into a tight end. Then you got the wild card of Jelani Thurman. If Jelani Thurman can block, you're not going to keep him off the field.
It's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. The size that he has, the athleticism that he has, like it will definitely be tough to keep him off the field.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the 4th guy, you've got Demarion Witten in there. I still think he ends up at a receiver spot. He's got the freakiness of Jelani, but the frame lends him to be more of a wide receiver, maybe even a hair more athletic.
Yeah. He's Demarion is he's a special talent. Had a chance to go up against him in a 7-on-7 the last 2 years, and then he just jumped out, man. Like the kid, his athleticism, his overall ball skills, he could bump down and play quarterback too. Like he could just do so many different things. Backing up to the offensive line though, really quick, we talked about it in case a portal tackle comes into the fold. The one thing I would be interested in is if Ohio State brought in a portal left tackle that would allow Simmons to bump back to a right tackle, which is his natural position. I think that could be a really good fit, a good look for the offensive line as well. I had that in my notes. I wanted to jump back to it really quick. But yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
the tight end position is special. I think Kazmarek is a dude. I think he's got all the potential. He gives me Luke Farrell and Jeff Hireman vibes. He's that type of really thick kid who loves to block. He's going to get his nose dirty, but he's also got ball skills. He can also go pluck the ball out of the sky. But he's not going to be afraid to be the pseudo fullback back there sometimes, because you remember when our run game was really popping with JK and some of the other guys, we had somebody in the backfield that could be that plus one as a blocker for us. And I love Farmer Gronk. I love K to death. But he battled injuries, so you could tell it kind of hampered him a little bit, and he couldn't be exactly who he wanted to be in the blocking game. So to be able to have somebody like Kazmarek come in, I think that's going to be huge. I know I'm not going to overlook G by any means. I think he's special. I think he's a Buckeye. Like, he's stuck around. He could have left, could have gone other places, but he's come back to Marion and talked to the kids at Harding. Like, he's done a lot of different things that shows that he's committed to being an Ohio State Buckeye. But Jelani, like, there's a lot of attention that the staff pays to him. Every practice I've gone to, like, he's been getting some one-on-one time after those practices, whether it's doing extra work or just to sit down and have a conversation. I think the staff knows his importance and knows, for us to be where we want to be in the next 2-3 years, like, Jelani's got to be a part of that. So I'm excited to see how he develops. I think his size, his athleticism, if he becomes that blocker that we think he can be, watch out. Watch out. He will be very hard to keep off the field. So that tight end room, man, I was kind of concerned at first, but with Kazmarek and hopefully the development of Jelani after the spring, it's going to be a pretty good group.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out Coach Key, for
Yeah.
That's a dude who I don't think a lot of people outside of Ohio State fans, especially hardcore Ohio State fans, knew who he was before he got that position. Everybody's like, who is this guy? Where's he coming from? But he's a dude. The guys love him. The staff loves him. And, you hit on G coming back to Marion. Shout out Trey, for making that happen.
Trey's the man.
So we'll go, I love it. Anytime anybody has some ties to Marion, you got to give them props.
Absolutely.
Staying on the offensive side of the ball, I don't know that it's so much a position battle. It's just going to be interesting to see if we finally get back into more of a rotation. The wide receiver room, obviously you've got a Mecca. I feel like Carnell Tate is a starter from day one of next year.
Yeah,
and sure. I don't think you keep Jeremiah Smith off the field. I think that, in this day and age especially, and we kind of saw it with the attrition from that room, especially receivers. These dudes want to play.
Yes.
Jeremiah's special. There's no other way to put it. I think, you run with those three, but then you've got Brandon Ennis, who, again, you don't really keep off the field because I think he kind of got overlooked, but he was a late arrival, I believe.
Yeah, he was. Year. Yeah, he did not early enroll.
Similar to Mylan Graham this year, who I think that's going to not hurt him, but you have to be realistic with your expectations going in later. And there's a lot of question marks in that room. You get a dude like Ballard, has stuck through the program, shows flashes here and there. How do you see that room playing out? And do you think there's a role for, a Ballard? You've also got, the 22 guys who, or the 20 or the 21 guys. I'm sorry,
21 guys. Yeah,
Kojo,
and Keon. Like,
it's wild.
I think that room. they've just done a great job of recruiting. They've done a great job of developing Zone 6 and keeping it a family. They making it tough for people to leave. Like they know they're going to have to earn it with Coach Hartline. I think one of the things I'm most excited about is seeing how Emeka does as the guy. I think he's earned that right. I wish last year he would have been able to stay healthy, but I want to see him as the guy. He plays so hard. He's a willing blocker. He does things. He's able to do the dirty work for us and as a receiver. And I will always root for guys like that. Carnell is going to be fantastic. To get the props that he got from Marvin last year, saying that he was much better than he was when he was a freshman. Like those are things like those you can't overlook those things. And Carnell Tate's story, what he had to deal with when he first got to Ohio State is something I will always, always, always root for. So I think he's going to take a huge leap forward. I'm excited to see him on the outside and Emeka on the outside as well. JJ, you know, there's not much he's special. Like he is once in a generation type receiver, the Julio Jones type receiver that you've got to find a way as a freshman to rotate him in. I don't know if he'll be the full-time starter, but he's going to have to be on the field. You don't get a number one player in the country and keep him off the field. So I think there will be a rotation. The guy that I am the most excited about though is Brandon Ennis. Brandon Ennis to me is he's a throwback. He is, I think, what we asked for from Xavier Johnson these last 2 years. I think Brandon Ennis can do that and then some. Brandon Ennis played defense when he was in high school. There's clips of him talking trash to JJ on the field. You know what I mean? Like those are things that I love seeing. He is a willing blocker. If you go back and you watch the Missouri game, there's a clip of when Ennis was in the game. One of the first plays he was in the game, it was just him blocking. And he made a great block out on the edge. He was geeked. Like he was so pumped up. And then you look at the sideline and Hartline is just sitting there clapping for him. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like you could tell like he just wants to be great. He wants to be coached up. And you saw what he could do when he gets a ball in his hand. The one catch that he has, first catch as a collegiate athlete, it's like 70 yards for a tutty. So, Brandon Ennis is a guy that I actually sat with his family at the All-American Bowl last year. They were intense. They were diehard, like wanting him to play right now. So his family's definitely all in too, but he's the guy I'm most excited about. And then Ballard, I'm always going to be a proponent of this. If a kid has an elite trait, you got to find a way to utilize that elite trait. Jaden Ballard can flat out fly. I mean, that kid can flat out fly. He's a freaky athlete. There's so many clips of him on YouTube in between the leg dunks and things like that when they have some downtime in the Woody. Like he is just a freak athlete. I want to see him go up top. I want to see him get those opportunities. I know that listen, I trust Coach Hartline to death, but I would like to see a rotation and maybe, hey, Jaden Ballard might not be a complete receiver, but he can run fades. He can run skinny posts. He can run those deeper routes. Try to find a way to utilize that elite trait that he has. So I'm excited for him. He's stuck around. He's an Ohio guy. I always root for the kids that are from Ohio. And then you got Kojo and you got Grays. Like those guys are stuck around. I hope they can carve out a role because they are true teammates. They are truly a part of the culture. Very, very talented, high 4-star kids when they came out in 21. They just came into a loaded room and they haven't ran from it. So it'll be interesting to see how the rotation, and everything goes. Mylan Graham, I'm excited about him. Obviously, he's coming late. And I will never fault a kid who wants to be a high school kid. Like you have the rest of your life to grow up and be an adult. Like enjoy that last year of high school. So play all the sports you can. I'll never fault a kid for that. But this room is going to be special. Emeka and Carnell, though, I'm really expecting big things. And I'm the most excited, though, for Brandon Ennis, for sure.
For sure. And like you were talking about Ballard being fast, I don't think a lot of people realize, Urban Meyer always uses the line fast. And Ballard is Devin Smith fast.
Yes.
I mean, it's,
yes.
that's his trait, take the top off. and
Yeah.
just go, young man. Rumble, young man, rumble.
Yeah. He can fly, man. He can run.
So that's going to be exciting to see. You switch to the defensive side of the ball, and you know, is there a battle at linebacker? Maybe.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe.
Cody Simon's locked in.
Yeah.
And I'll give that dude credit. He played his butt off the last part of the year.
Yeah.
When Tommy got dinged up, he stepped in and played really, really well. Probably the best football he's played since he's been in Columbus.
Yes.
To me, the other backer spot, now that you've got Caleb Downs, I think you move Sonny down. I think the frame is there. But you've got a lot of depth pieces behind him as well, and guys that are gonna play. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously being Ohio guys, we've heard about CJ Hicks for years.
Yep.
There have been times as a casual fan, I watch CJ Hicks and he looks a little bit out of place, but I think that comes with reps, and it was easy to clamor for CJ to get playing time when Steele and Tommy didn't look good.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we've put this basket of faith over here in Coach Knowles' hand. And Coach Knowles is a linebackers guy.
Yeah.
He knows what he's got with CJ. And if he's not ready, he's not going to put him out there.
Yep.
We've talked a little bit forward in previous episodes. Just from meeting the kid, I'm a massive Gabe Powers fan. I think he's better than people realize. Coming
Much
from
better.
Marysville, not a powerhouse program by any means. They've got a guy that played there with the Super Bowl ring, though. Shout out Chase Blackburn.
Yeah. Forgot all about that.
So, and that dude does a lot down there. So props to him for that. And then I think a lot of people, because of the injury, forget about Arvell Reese.
Yes.
This kid, we've seen so many linebackers start their career on special teams and make their path that way, which we'll hit on later when we start talking about Rushmore, because one of the guys we're going to talk about laid a hit on special teams that kind of put him on the map. Obviously defense is your forte. A lot of these guys. You've seen them play. Where do you think that room breaks down? And, who do you see kind of getting the bulk of the reps?
Yeah, I think Cody Simon, obviously, I believe you could pencil him in as a starter. I think he's earned the right, but I also think he is very good. There were times last year, the last 2 years, where I thought he should have been out there more. I appreciate everything that Tommy and Steele did. I think they developed, and kudos to Coach Laurinaitis and Coach Knowles for getting the best out of them these last 2 years. But it is interesting when you talk about the CJ Hickses and the Gabe Powers and the Arvell Reeses. The one thing that those guys all have in common is they're just freaky athletes. When you see CJ Hicks, you're like, okay, he's a freak of nature. How's he not on the field? You know what I mean? But there's so much more. There's so much more that goes into being a linebacker, and we just don't know those little intricacies into practice and how he's doing, and is he able to pick up the reads, and is he able to be the quarterback of the fronts and of the second level and things like that. That those are things that we don't know, but we do know is he's a freak athlete. You could say the same thing about Gabe. You could say the same thing about Arvell Reese, and so it will be interesting to see how that shakes out. I will say that I would like to see him put, whether it's any of those three, as the jack. I put that in the notes. Will the jack come back? Those are three guys that I think can all do it. I really do. They're physical guys. They've never going to shy away from contact. I mean, every time Gabe has had an opportunity to be in at linebacker, you just see a crazed animal just running to the football all the time. When CJ's in, you see somebody that may be thinking a little bit too much. And then when Arvell was in on special teams, I mean, he was trying to knock people's blocks off the whole entire time. So you got guys that aren't afraid to go out there and hit. We've got to find a way to utilize that athleticism. I do think they will find a way to use the jack. And whether that's CJ, Gabe, or Arvell, I don't know which one it is, but I think they will find a way to utilize that. I personally think CJ Hicks would be ideal for that. He's too freaky of an athlete. And like you said last episode with Baron Browning, like, like the 5-star kid who never really put it all together, but then he goes in his rookie year in the NFL and he looks like, oh, look at this kid, like he's playing the edge rusher in a 3-4. Like, we feel like you kind of missed the boat on that. Do I think we need to move Sonny Styles to linebacker? Yes. But I want people to understand the difference in playing safety versus playing in the box as a linebacker. There were times last year, and if you go back and you watch the Penn State game specifically, there were times last year where the middle safety was Sonny Styles, and he would rotate down into the box as the Mike linebacker. I will tell you, he did not look so comfortable in there. So for him to play linebacker, it's going to be a little bit of a transition, but he has every physical trait that you could want in a linebacker. And he's got the bloodlines. I think he can do it. And if it were me as a coordinator, I would pencil him in as the other linebacker. I know sounds kind of backward a little bit, but I just think he has all the tools that you want in that will linebacker. And I think he has potential to be special. Either way, he's going to be on the field in some capacity. You cannot keep him off the field. And so it'll be interesting. You see in the videos, he is, still working out with the DBs. So maybe they still see him as a safety. I don't know. But I would like to see him at linebacker. And I think with him and Cody and maybe a little bit of a rotation of Gabe and CJ, I think you got a great group. And you can't forget about, the Nigel Glovers and then the guys that you brought in this year as well, or bringing in this year in the 24 class. So it's a good group. It's a good problem to have. I think this is the biggest question mark on defense. So the spring is so vital. That's why I hope they make Laurinaitis the coach so he can really get to work with all that stuff too.
Yeah, it's crazy that hasn't been addressed, but we've kind of beat that horse these last couple of weeks. I'm gonna throw a wild card one at you that I jotted down, after we kind of started talking notes. Kick returner.
Yeah.
Now that I feel like we may finally start to try to return the ball a little bit. The two guys I kind of have that I've thought of for that role are Brandon Ennis.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not gonna, depending on how the rotation is gonna go receiver, and Lorenzo Styles Jr.
Oh yeah.
Return kicks at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Has been garnering a lot of praise, since his time in Columbus.
Yep.
And I feel like he's another guy. Try to find a way to get him on the field.
Absolutely. And then those are two guys that if I would pencil them in as the kick returners. Brandon Ennis, the way he runs like a running back. I mean, he's a physical kid. I think he's a big play waiting to happen. And then Lorenzo Styles, that's another guy, and I've got him on my notes too, is like, I want to see what he can do. I know he's got the ability. They loved him as a corner. I think he could develop behind Jordan Hancock and be that second nickel that's on the field. Like, those are two guys I'm excited about. So, excuse me, if they've got to be kick returners, hey, let's get them on the field and see what they can do.
So yeah, speaking of guys we're excited about, who are we trying to watch this spring? You and I follow spring practices, very closely. Obviously, I know they coordinate some stuff with the coaches clinics and stuff like that allows you to get, a little better peek than a lot of folks. As the couch potato, I've got 5 names that I'm looking at.
Okay.
Luke Montgomery. Obviously, we talk about Luke a lot, and rightfully so. I think Luke is going to be a vital part of that offensive line in one way or the other. I can't wait to see, where he's working at and, how he's looking at it. A couple guys we've talked about, CJ Hicks, Gabe Powers. Both are going to be juniors. Or no. Yeah, both are going to be juniors.
Yep, they will be.
Gabe always confuses me because, like I said, I think week 1, when we met him at the State House, he was getting ready to go to Ohio State. And that was Jaden's junior year. So,
yeah,
I want to see Hicks play with more of that blend of Gabe's killer instinct.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see Sonny Styles. We all know Sonny is phenomenal, but at the end of the day, this is a kid that's a year ahead of schedule. So there have been some bumps in the road, and there are times it's like, but I want to see, that next level of progression. And then I want to see Arvell Reese, see how he comes back from everything, and see if he can start kind of planting those seeds to find a more defined role on the defense.
Yeah. That's a good list, man. I think those are all people that, will be contributors in some way, whether it's on special teams. So, um, I've got a list of guys too. The first one for me, like you just mentioned with Luke, um, I'm excited to see Luke take that next step, man. I'm always rooting for the kid, but not just because I coached him, but because he's special and he's talented. And I'm excited to see him become that guard or offensive lineman that we've all been clamoring for, those road grader types. I mean, he embodies all of that stuff. Luke's got a mean streak. He's a freak athlete. Like he's got everything you would want in an athletic guard. The one thing I like about him the most, though, and some of the guys that we have been recruiting, and that's something I want to touch on after we get done talk about 2024. Those guards are that we've been recruiting, the Lukes, the Gabe Van Sickles, the Ian Moores, all those guys, they are all really athletic guys, which allow you to not only run some wide zone schemes, but now you can start running some gap scheme stuff as well. And if you go back and look at the success of our run game, it's when Zeke Elliott was able to find a little sliver because the guard was able to pull and kick out, and there was just enough of a crease for him to get through. And the same thing with J.K. Dobbins. So I'm excited to see if Bill O'Brien brings some of the gap scheme stuff with him, or maybe convinces Ryan Day to do a little bit more, because I think that's the type of guys that we have up front. So I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's just one of the things I'm excited about. The other dude is Caden Curry. You could see it last year. They had him at fullback at times. Like they're just trying to find ways to get that kid on the field. I think his motor, the rotation at the defensive line level, the packaging, those things have to happen. You can't keep that kid off the field. I'm sorry. Like he's a kid that you could bump down inside in a 3rd and 8, 9 situation where it's a passing down, and you put him one-on-one with the guard. He's going to give that guard some trouble. So that's a guy I'm looking forward to. Lorenzo Styles, I want to see what he can do. We love Jordan Hancock. Jordan Hancock might be my favorite player on the team. He might be my favorite player of like the last 5 years. I love those nickel type kids. I think I love that they can get involved in the box and the run game, and they can blitz and they can play man coverage and all that stuff. But who's after him? That's the question. Like you're talking about the freshman we just brought in, Miles Lockhart. Is he going to be ready to make that bump? Last year, if it wasn't Jordan Hancock, it was Sonny that was there. Well, if Sonny goes to linebacker, now you got to have that other guy there. I think Lorenzo Styles can be that guy, to where if let's say Iggy is hurt or banged up and Jordan has to bump outside, I think Lorenzo could bump inside and you're not going to miss too much. So I'm excited to see that development that he has. And then the last one, we haven't really talked about him on here, Tywone Malone. I think Tywone Malone, we were all excited when we got him. I think we were all shocked that we got him. But I think he has that SEC type ability when it comes to being a 3-technique pass rusher. I think he has the ability of, I might be going out on a limb. Some people probably don't agree, but I think he's got Mike Hall type ability. I think he just needs to we've got to find a way to cultivate that. You see him in the videos and the pictures online of winter workouts. The kid looks like a complete monster. Like I don't even know if he's got fat on him, but he's a big 3-technique. So that's a guy that I'm excited about, to be able to add some more depth to the interior defensive line. So, and obviously the quarterback position as well. I just want to know how they're going to get how are they all going to get reps? I want to see how that works out. So, if I get the opportunity to go to some spring practices this year, I'm going to be excited to see that. Even though I don't coach quarterbacks, I'll probably spend some time watching because I just want to see how it's going to divvy up.
One little caveat with Taiwan Malone, I think a lot of people forget how athletic he is. We all loved Mike Hall's twitch. Mike
Yep.
Hall has major twitch. Um, Taiwan Malone's a baseball player too.
Yeah.
Now he's not playing at OSU now, but that's part of the reason he went to Ole Miss. Was he wanted to do both and try it. Um, you don't go to Ole Miss and play baseball and not be athletic. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
premier program in the country. So just something to kind of keep an eye on. Those are the guys that we're all looking at. Who's one guy that you're looking to make a leap? For me, I'm going to pound the horse. I'm going CJ Hicks again.
Okay.
I think that and it's almost unfair to him, but you are put on this pedestal, and rightfully so. The kid is phenomenal, and
Yeah.
he's one of those kids who you never hear a bad thing about. You don't hear any negative interactions with other students, with other players, causing ruckus at practice, anything like that. I want him to succeed, so that's who I'm looking at to make that leap.
Yeah. For me, and it's been talked about a ton already. Sonny Styles is the guy that I am looking forward to seeing take a leap this season. People have to remember he reclassified, so he's still very young. Like, he's still very young. He's still trying to figure out. I mean, Pick Central is one of the best programs in the state of Ohio. But to come in from that and to immediately be asked to play safety at 6'4", 220 plus pounds as a freshman and sophomore, that is not an easy thing to do, And so I'm excited to see him, whether it is as the big nickel or as a linebacker. I'm excited to see him really come into his own this season. He's a freak of nature. We've said that so many times. He's a great kid, great young man. And I think he has the potential to be a true game changer for us on a defense that's already full of dudes. And I think he has the ability to really help put this defense over the top. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see where he's at in the spring, and I'm looking forward and expecting him to make a huge leap, no matter what position he's at this year.
For sure, he's just too good not to.
Yeah.
With all the guys coming back, one of the things we kind of wanted to hit on is, what are we looking for from some of these guys? Because obviously they all came back for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes, they want to beat the team up north. They want to win the national championship. But at the end of the day, you come back for a reason selfishly.
Yeah.
So a couple of those that, I kind of am looking for. Jack Sawyer, I just want to see him keep building off of that back half of last year. JTT, that's a dude who, that recruitment was one of my favorites to follow.
Yeah.
Because nobody knew what was going on. In this day and age, to keep that recruitment that close to the vest. And then you had the whole 24/7 leak in the wrong graphic, 2 hours before his announcement. I was sitting at Heist Park in Galleon, keeping scorebook, July 4th weekend of a baseball tournament, and then I knew, I was on the tablet, had my phone for the announcement. Like, it's just what it's about. But I want to see him be more consistent. I want to see Penn State JTT against everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Travion, I just want Travion to have a healthy season.
Yes.
That kid, we've talked about it, and we'll say it all the time. He's a dude, and in that position on the field of a running back, to come back for a senior season, knowing that now you're going to be splitting carries, just shows you what it means to him to get that kind of film. So I hope he can stay healthy.
Yeah. There's so many things I could talk about. The first thing I'll talk about is how Coach Fry handles the offensive line. That's one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to. I think Coach Fry gets a very, very bad rep. I think Coach Fry is a very good coach, and I think his guys are developing. And I'm excited to see that development continue this year. I think that he has got a type that he's recruited, and I think we've gotten a lot of those guys in the door. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward to. The other thing is how we use Travion. You kind of took mine there. I want to see how we utilize him. I would like to see him stay healthy. So obviously adding Quinshawn is going to help that, but I'd like to see him get a jet sweep. I'd like to see him in the slot, running some slants and simple passes or simple routes in the passing game. Those are some things I would like to see. Obviously I'm a defensive guy, so I have very, very, very high expectations for this defense. I want to see how we close out games. That is what I want to see. Are we going to take that next step in the fourth quarter to ensuring, hey, our offense may be struggling a little bit, or the offense, is not really driving the ball right now. We got to go out and get stops. No matter what, can we manufacture those stops? That's what I'm excited to see. I think our defense is going to be elite. I think it's got everything that you want: size, speed, tackling, ball skills. So those are things I'm looking forward to. And then I want to see what Ryan Day can do with Will Howard. I think Will Howard, the more and more I've watched his film, I watched a Texas game again the other day, and I've watched the TCU Big 12 championship from 2 years ago, and he's got everything that you want. I'm excited to see how, Coach O'Brien, if he's still here, and Coach Day can kind of mold Will Howard into the quarterback that I think he can be. So there's a ton of excitement going into the season. A lot of interesting storylines. And one thing about JT, his new shampoo deal, that is what NIL is for. That
Yes.
right there. Like when I think of name, image, and likeness, I think of that. Not paying the kids up front, but if you got a great freaking head of hair and some company wants to give you a shampoo line, then let them freaking do it. Like that. Oh my God, that puts the biggest smile on my face. That
Oh,
is
I love
what
it.
NIL is for.
For sure. Unpaid plug, speaking of NIL, um, shout out and anybody that watches us that dabbles in sports memorabilia, trading cards. There's a company out there called On It Athlete. Um,
Okay.
60% of the revenue goes to NIL.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a
Oh, that's
hundred
awesome.
it's a 100 card set. Player autographs. That was a Cardinal Tate. We've got a Trey. So check them out. Just like I said, that's an unsolicited plug, but at some point we're really going to have an episode where we dive into NIL
Heck
and
yeah.
some of my thoughts. But that's the ways to help this. Those guys. 1870 Foundation has a beer.
Yeah.
Only available at Giant Eagle right now. But if you don't want to make the recurring donations, I get it. But yeah, just personal plug there. You did hit on Coach Bill O'Brien. I was just checking my phone to see if anything has changed.
Yeah.
Lot of conflicting info still, nothing official. So, we'll leave well enough alone there until
Yep.
till we see what happens. So that brings us to the controversial segment. So we're gonna change it up and do a defensive Mount Rushmore today. That and
Yes.
we didn't have the heart to
Yes.
go running backs to wide receivers because
No.
that the blood pressure would do this.
Yeah.
Which this one wasn't easy either.
Heck no. I
Um,
thought it was gonna be easy, and then I started doing the list, and I was like, maybe we should
yeah.
have did receivers.
So we're gonna do linebackers today. And I know we both, I think that's probably gonna be our trend going forward. Because
Yeah.
it's just hard.
It's too many.
To do a play versus personal preference. So as far as play goes, and I know we've always tried to keep these within our lifetime.
Yep.
My number one is borderline. I think I was like 3. But it's Chris Spielman. I
Yeah.
mean, the dude exemplifies a linebacker.
Yeah.
So following that up, I go Andy Katzenmoyer.
Okay.
That was right
All
around
right.
when I started watching football.
Yeah.
It's hard, college
Yeah.
especially.
Okay.
Um, out there taking Corby Jones's head off, and I
Literally
mean,
took his head off.
um, then it gets a little more difficult because I feel like the next two are really easy, almost
Yeah,
too easy, and I feel like you know this is probably the one that, as hard as it is, everybody shares the same top four.
yeah,
Um, you got to go AJ Hawk.
yeah,
Um, he came in, and that group of Hawk, Carpenter, and Schlegel,
yeah.
you know,
Special.
was and we always called AJ the Mask back then because he looked like the guy from the Mask. Now my
That
man's out here.
jawline, the
Yes,
jawline is so strong.
he was a caveman. I mean,
Yeah,
but we talked about how Gabe Powers plays, with just bad intent.
yeah,
AJ Hawk played with similar intent.
yeah.
Um, and then you got to go. Hopefully, our 10th coach soon, James Laurinaitis. I mean, uh, I was very critical of him, especially in like the LSU national championship game,
Yeah.
because all you heard in that game was James Laurinaitis has 25 tackles or whatever the number was. Uh, I worked with somebody we both know at the time who knows football, way better than me and just as well as you, and
Mhm.
Bryson Lawrence.
Yeah.
And Bryson and I, Bryce is like, dude, but look at where the tackles happened,
Yep.
and,
Gotta
and they
pay
were
attention
8 yards
to
down the field.
that. Yep.
And but when you look at the body of work, um, you can't really see it. But over my shoulder, beneath the two big photos, is a photo from Laurinaitis' freshman year, and it's
Mhm.
literally just the back of his jersey and his number. And he had hair
Yeah.
at this point. Um, he got thrust into that Michigan game his freshman
Yes, he
year
did.
when Bobby Carpenter broke his leg,
Yeah.
and from there on out, the kid never left the field.
Yep.
An honorable mention, just because it was before my time, to Tom Cousineau.
Yeah.
I mean, so those are my playlist. I have a feeling we're probably pretty similar, but let's
Yeah.
see what you got.
Yeah. So my list is the exact same as yours. Chris Spillman, number one. Andy Katzenmoyer, number two. AJ Hawk, number three, and James Laurinaitis, number four. Chris Spillman was definitely before my time, but I remember my dad talking about him. I remember Chris Spillman when he was with the Lions. Um, and then just when he was working and doing the Buckeye games, like you started to obviously had the things going on with his wife, but you started research. I started researching him more, and he is the embodiment of not just a linebacker, but what a Buckeye is. So he's definitely number one. Andy Katzenmoyer, I mean, that dude was special. Big, monstrous guy. I remember joking. I always wanted Anthony Marsano to be like him. Like go get a visor. You got number 44. Go get a
Get a
visor.
neck
Go be a
roll.
yeah. Go get that big neck roll. The one thing that always stand out about Andy Katzenmoyer to me was when he was coaching at Westerville South and Pete DeWolf. I don't know if you knew Pete. Pete was our the Marion Harding football manager, like the top manager. And he was a very older guy, very kind of senile a little bit, stuck in his ways, but he was a Buckeye guy. Like he loved, seeing those guys that we used to play go on to have success at the college level. And I remember him seeing Andy Katzenmoyer when he was a coach. He just left our warm-ups and went right over to Andy Katzenmoyer and like introduced himself, took his hat off out of respect. I was like, man, Pete, that's awesome. Like, you're the man. So that's one thing that always stands out. AJ Hawk, the thing that stood out to me, and I always felt like he was underrated athletically. He was so good sideline to sideline. I mean, he's the type of linebacker that's good in all eras. He could play in between the tackles. He could run sideline to sideline. He could, drop back into pass coverage. He could run vertical with number two if they're playing cover two. Like those are things that he could do, and I always respected that about him. The last one was Laurinaitis. I just thought Laurinaitis was a tackling machine, and he was always around the football. He always found a way. And the thing that stood out to me about Laurinaitis Samosa was he was a leader. He was always communicating on the field. And as a coach, that's all you ever want from a linebacker. As a linebacker, your job is to make sure that everybody up front in the box is where they're supposed to be. And I know that's a lot to ask, but when you see guys like Laurinaitis do that, it just sets that standard for what a good linebacker should be. And obviously went on to have a great career in the NFL. So did AJ Hawk as well. So, those would be my top four. The exact same lineup as yours as well. My honorable mention would be Pepper Johnson. Pepper Johnson was one of my dad's favorite players. Played for the Giants, played for the Browns. I didn't realize that he was a Buckeye until he got to the Browns. And then that's when my dad kind of coached me up on him. So Pepper Johnson, he's also a fantastic coach as well. So that's a guy that I will always, include into that top 4 or 5 or whatever of GOATs at the linebacker position.
Yeah, for sure. That is a tough one. But I love
tough.
it. And with hitting on Pepper, we always try to highlight people that do great things. So we're going to shout out his son Deontay, doing some crazy good stuff in Columbus. Runs a sneaker business, gives back to the community. So just again, we try to highlight the good things that are going on out there.
Absolutely.
So on the personal side, this one gets fun. This one is in no particular order. Bobby Carpenter. He's one of the most entertaining radio guys out there.
Yeah, he is.
But he was kind of the Rushman of Ohio State before the Rushman package was a thing. A lot of folks don't realize, there were times that he had his hand on the ground and was in pass rush situations. Matt Wilhelm.
Okay, there we go.
Again, just when you look at a guy that, that's a linebacker.
Yeah.
Won a natty here, got a Super Bowl ring with the Packers. Just a hard-nosed dude.
Yeah.
These last two, one of them I kind of put on my I don't think I put him on my personal floor, but Brian Roll. You bring a 5'10" kid from Immokalee, Florida up to here who, that's a Clemson hotbed.
Yeah.
You bring him up here. Not only did he embrace it, but he succeeded. That 2-point conversion against Navy.
Huge.
Game changer.
Yeah.
And then my last one, I alluded to it earlier, talking about special teams. This dude laid a hit in a Northwestern game, and that is Etienne Sabino.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It's just one of those things.
Back. Forgot all about him.
Yeah. Again, not the most prestigious career by any means.
He was a big-time recruit, though.
Yeah, and just a dude I love to watch.
Yeah.
And, how I kept Ryan Shazier off of either list, I still don't know.
Yeah.
But, as we also like to tie things to Marion, we got to throw out Marco Cooper, former Marion Mayhem linebacker.
Yeah.
Dude had his vices, went through some ups and downs, but when he was here, he was a blast to watch.
Marion Mayhem. Gosh, Bryson, my cousin Bryson Lawrence, he's the greatest football player I've ever known. I literally would go sit in the front rows of those games just to watch Bryson play. I remember he got an interception and he threw a ball up in the crowd, and this little girl was about to catch it, and I straight mossed her. And I was like,
Bryson is one of the best.
That's my cousin, man. I'm sorry. Their dad was like, really? I was like, yeah, I'm sorry.
He always took care of Jaden. We would always go sit front row, the Coliseum crazies. So, shout out B-Law, Phase 6. Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. So, okay. So, we share the same number one in our personal favorites for the same exact reasons. Bobby Carpenter was the way we talk about Sonny Styles and the way we talk about CJ Hicks. That was Bobby Carpenter. He was a freak athlete, and that's why he got drafted in the first round. I love the fact that he was not afraid to put his hand in the ground and get after the quarterback. And that was something that always stood out to me. And that's when you know, I was young then, but that's when I started seeing the importance of having those hybrid type players, um, and playing to their strengths and what they can bring to the team. That's when I really actually started paying attention to that. So Bobby Carpenter will be my favorite linebacker forever. I mean, he was just fun to watch. Ohio guy, just loved rooting for him. Obviously, love him even more now that he's on the radio and just a good personality, somebody you can actually listen to and trust that he's saying the right stuff or true stuff, not spitting out, some bull crap, but he's actually talking about real things. So I appreciate him for that. My number two, my brother used to make fun of me for this because he used to think he was trash, but I would always tell him like he's not. It's Pete Werner. Pete Werner was so underrated here. And this is why I know he was underrated. We all love Jeff Hafley so much. We love the year that he was here, the defense that we ran. What people don't know about that defense is that every position in the second level had to learn, like if you're playing cover three, each one had to learn how to be a deep third defender, a middle third defender, a flat defender, a deep third defender. So even the linebackers had to learn how to be a deep third defender that you would normally see from a corner. They had to learn to be the middle third defender that you would see from a free safety. Pete Werner in the Clemson game that we always dread because they screwed us over on a fumble. There are multiple plays that game where Pete Werner in cover three is rotating from linebacker to middle safety, and he's defending a post. It's not cover two. He's the post defender. For a coach, an NFL coach, to trust you to do that tells me that you're a freaking dog. And that is something that would always stand out to me about Pete Werner. And now you watch him in the NFL, he is having such a good career. He is your prototype NFL linebacker these days. And so Pete Werner always stood out for me. He always got a lot of flack. But his last year that he was at Ohio State, he did start to get some love a little bit. So, him and Bobby Carpenter might be 1A, 1B for me just because of their athleticism. Number three, Quan the Truth. Raekwon McMillan. That I loved his recruitment. I love that we went down to Georgia to get him. I love that he was a player for us as a freshman under Urban Meyer. I just loved everything about him. He was a linebacker. Your prototype. I don't have a neck type linebacker that is great inside the box and is just going to physically impose his will. I'm always going to be a big fan of him. That single digit number 5. There was a few games where he came out with no gloves on, and I'm like, look at this dude. He's such a throwback. So Raekwon McMillan would always be one of my favorites. And the last one for the undersized guys, I wanted to go Brian Roll here, but I went with Ryan Shazier. Ryan Shazier, not a big-time recruit coming out of Florida, very undersized, very skinny, but a missile to the football. I mean, relentless to the football. Obviously, with his injury and things, wish he would have had some better technique at times, but a special, special player, sideline to sideline. Obviously, in the NFL, he's having a great career as well until he got injured. So that would round out my top 4 favorite linebackers. I mean, the dude was like all 4 of those guys, just the athleticism that they brought, man. Like, I'm always a big fan of that. That's why I think Sonny Styles could be a stud at linebacker because of guys like this that came before him.
For sure. And I've actually been fortunate enough to talk to Ryan after the injury.
Yeah.
It was a very brief conversation, but such a genuine dude.
Yeah.
And to see, where he's at now, being able to essentially function normal, that's
Crazy.
awesome. Yeah. So that wraps up the Mount Rushmore segment. Who we want to shout out this week in closing?
I would like to shout out Coach Tim Hinton, the unsung mayor of the Woody Hayes Center. I want to shout him out. My wife and I were talking to his daughter the other day, and this dude was just walking around. She sent a picture to my wife. He's just walking around the house in a Marion Harding Success is a Choice sweatshirt at his house. And it's just like, no matter where he's gone, he's not forgot about how important Marion was to his career. You know, I will always be indebted to that guy. And I just think we were talking about the tight ends today, and I was thinking about Jeff Hireman and those guys. And they all loved Coach Hinton, so it's just great to have one of our own down at Ohio State making a huge impact. So I wanted to give him a shout out. It's my guy, and always going to be a big fan of his. And for all you Marion listeners, City of Kings, like Coach Hinton has never once forgot about us, and he never will. He still reps the Marion Harding stuff proud. I had a chance to be in his office, and he's got Marion Harding stuff around his office too. So he's a true president like we all are. And, I'm just excited that he's still down there doing his thing. So shout out to Coach Hinton. Thank you for making me run all those times in high school, walking up to my house and telling my parents how bad I was at practice and things like that. I appreciate all that, man. So shout out to Coach Hinton, man. He's doing his thing and representing his family and Marion very well.
Awesome. Well, cool deal. All right. Well, that wraps up episode 4. As we've said, the last couple of weeks, thank you everybody for the support and the love. Keep subscribing to the channel, YouTube, Spotify, like, comment. We're going to try to interact, with every comment. At the end of the day, we're doing this to just kind of hang out and talk football, but we love talking with you guys too. So, don't be afraid to shoot us ideas, suggestions, input.